Okay, now it's time to get down to the nuts and bolts about how your company actually works and where the science all fits together. As scientists, one of the things we have to do is to talk to other people outside of science. And this is really what this unit is about. In that, you will all be given the creativity to go and research into your area of interest. And you can come up with some wonderful things that you think that you could do in that area in the next 12 months. But what you have to then start thinking about is what the regulations are around that particular scientific program that you're trying to do. For instance, you may have a wonderful plan to carry out these wonderful experiments, but of course you have to think about money, but there may also be other important things that you need to consider. For instance, you may have to think about the occupational health and safety in what you're doing. You may have to think about societal ethics around what you are doing. You may even need to think about things like if you're going to be producing, say, a food substance, things like food safety and other Australian standards, which may limit the capacity in what you can do. The other important thing to consider, especially when you are working in a company, is that companies will only invest in things that they will make a profit out of. And so things like marketing become really, really important. Now, as a scientist, we must be able to speak to people like marketers, people like accountants, and people like, as we've listed on here, people who are like heads of divisions. These people are highly intelligent, but may not have the depth of science that you and me may have. So one of the things that we do in Advanced Science Project B is to get you to try and think a little bit about what it would be like to be standing in their shoes. This becomes a little bit scary for some of the scientists who say, I know nothing about marketing or whatever. And don't worry, we don't expect you to become, fully versed in marketing or even accounting. What's important is you start to realise about some of the considerations that these people use in making decisions on whether or not science can go ahead or not. And this is where science and regulatory constraints start butting up heads. And so this is one of the things that you start clearly seeing when you start working down at your divisions. So let's just talk a little bit about how the divisions work. If you have 4 company members, you will have 4 or 5 divisions to your company. So if you have 4 members, you will have 4 divisions. These scientific divisions can have a theme or be 4 completely unrelated scientific areas. That's completely up to you as a company to decide. For instance, I have had groups who have a theme for their overall company about recycling, actually it was recycling waste from a blueberry factory, for instance, a factory which made blueberry juice. It's completely up to you what activities that your companies do in your 4 divisions. Within each division, your 4 members will have a specific role. There will be a head of division, a scientific officer, a marketer, and a divisional accountant. Now, what each of these do in detail will be, there will be a separate video in the folders for each of these roles on the view site. So I'm not going to go into them in a lot of detail in a moment. However, as you can imagine, there are 4 divisions and there are 4 of you, everybody gets a chance on at least one occasion of carrying out the activities in one of these particular areas. So by the end of your company's activities at the end of the semester, all of you will have a chance to be a head of division, a scientific officer, a marketer, and a divisional accountant. And as I said, various people here will put together cases for why your company should invest money and time working on a particular scientific project. Some people in the group will be putting up arguments about why this is a good idea or a bad idea. But as a company, you will sit around and decide whether or not the scientific activity is worthwhile investing for in your company. So everybody gets a chance to have a role in one of these roles during semester, and is articulated very clearly in the final document about under each division which person was head of division, scientific officer, marketer and divisional accountant. And as a consequence, marks then get assigned to individuals based on the quality of work within these divisions. So the divisions are the place in which the science really gets bedded down. And it's the place where people start thinking about science from a different perspective. You know, is this product going to be of value in the marketplace? How are we going to protect the intellectual property of our inventions? Do we have the money to do what we want to do? Do we have to apply for special permits to use animals in our experiment? All these things are really, really important for a scientist to think about. Really, really important for us to understand that as scientists we may have wonderful ideas, but society and a whole lot of other constraints impact on whether or not our science can go ahead or not. And this is what this particular unit is about. It's about allowing you to explore and be creative in a particular area of science, but then asking the question, in the real world, you know, would this be a possibility for someone to go and do this work or not, based on these types of forces which a scientist must immerse themselves in the outside world. So hopefully you'll all start seeing things from the perspective of a marketer, an accountant, or thinking about protecting intellectual property and legislation which scientists have to interact with. And that's a really high level of scientific knowledge and understanding than really just a bench scientist who's just thinking about doing a project to get an endpoint, where in reality in the outside world that may never happen.